Hey guys, it's Dave Salvadore of Blueline Design. Thanks for coming back for the continued big Blood Bowl board build. Still going. This project reminds me of that saying, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Every week I am working on the project, filming, editing, and posting. So you are seeing the slow process of creating a big build. This week I'm going to share with you guys the dungeon side of the field. So let's get right into that. Okay, you crafters, today I'm going to be working on the dungeon side of the field. For the logo in the center, I have a plan for that, but it's going to come later. So what I did is I printed out a copy of it, scaled it up a little bit bigger to what I'm going to do later on, and I'm just putting it there for my eye to know where the logo is going to live. I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm just going to use the original board as a guide for all the measurements. I use this gigantic T-square to draw out the grid that I will then cut out the dungeon tiles. Here I use that logo as a guide by pinning it down, and then I stipple a little pin line around so that I can get just the generic shape of the logo and not need to work in that area. Once the grid is all drawn onto the XPS foam, I then use an X-Acto blade to bevel out all of the grooves of the dungeon tiles. While cutting, I made sure to kind of wobble the X-Acto blade a little bit so that it wouldn't look like a bathroom floor tile. With the tile grid now cut out, I'm ready to move on to texturing the whole board. So here I just use an X-Acto blade to take out some chunks. I use my trusty foil ball to hammer in some texture. I also made a foil roller to roll in some texture quicker. Also using the pen to draw in some cracks. The next thing I did was cut out some strips of XPS foam to create a raised edge around the field so that when the board is laying down on a table that it wouldn't mess everything up. So I beveled the edges of these pieces of foam, hot glued them into place, and then textured them to blend into the dungeon side of the field. So in the game Blood Bowl, there are these little trap doors on the field that the ball pops into play. So I'm carving out a square here that I will put a trap door in later. Now that the field is carved out and textured, I'm ready to move on to putting a nice base coat of Mod Podge with black craft paint mixed in with it. And while base coating, I'm careful to stipple on the paint rather than brush it to avoid brush strokes. After the base coat dries, the next thing is to put the grout in between the tiles. Now I'm going to use a medium grit ballast. I think that's what it's called. It's little tiny rocks used in train building sets. And I'm going to take a 50-50 mix of Elmer's glue and water, put it in between all the cracks of the tiles, and then sprinkle the ballast over it. Now I just did this a section at a time, and then I just dumped out the excess onto a lawn leaf bag that was on the ground. So I wanted the grout to be kind of recessed in between the tiles. I put too much glue and too much ballast in, and it was actually coming out of some of the tiles. This is from my inexperience of using this material, so just take it from me, you need less glue and less ballast than you think. So I used a light grit sandpaper to just knock off some of that excess ballast, and I set it into place with a little bit more glue. Finally, I sealed the whole board with one more coat of the Mod Podge and black paint mix. This is going to make the board much more durable when handling and gaming on. Since the board is so black with that base coat, you can't really see the detail, so I'm just going to quickly dry brush a gray all over it so that you guys hopefully can see how it turned out. While I finish this up, here's how I made the little dungeon trapdoors for the field. The first thing you do is cut a square piece of XPS foam that will fit in the space. I then cut that in half to make 2 doors. I then cut out a piece of plastic styrene to fit over top of the XPS foam. I draw a square that will represent the door and carefully cut it out with the X-Acto blade. I then cut out a smaller piece to go on top of the door so it'll have a little bit of thickness. Then using some hot glue around the frame, I glue that to the XPS foam. And I hot glue the door on as well. To make the hinge, I cut out 3 pieces of styrene tubing, which you'll see me glue onto a smaller piece of styrene that fits in the middle. I then crazy glue that onto the door so that it sells the idea that it's a little trap door on a hinge. I then glue down some of those little gems that I've used in my dungeon build to look like little rivets on the frame. I bent a small piece of wire around a brush handle to make a round ring. And with a small piece of the tube, I cut off part of that to make the clasp that will hold the ring to the door. I then carved in a little bit of wear and tear on the dungeon door, primed it, and they were ready for the field. So here's where I am in the build. I learned a lot from this part of the project, and I'm looking forward to continuing with the next phase. Hope you guys enjoyed watching that. Next week, I'm planning on sharing the field side of the build. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified for the next part in this series, hit the bell icon. Really appreciate all the support from the gaming and crafting community. Until next time, keep drawing, keep designing. Oh, I wasn't right in this region. Perfect. And cut.